Solar. Just bear with me, I'm a little bit nervous. I normally don't mind public speaking too much, but I'm nervous. My hands are a little bit shaky and closer? Is that better? Okay, great, thank you. I'm sweating a little bit, but it's all right. My breath is a little bit in my chest, but these are all normal signs of stress. My body believes that there's a threat out there right now. Not that any of you guys are threats, but kind of feels like that to me right now. There's a few familiar faces in the audience, but not too many. So, of course, that's what we're here to talk about today. We're talking about stress, the effects of stress, especially when it is us as expats being somewhere that's not our home country. All of the process of moving here, even if you've been here for a while, is a stressful one. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to deal with the effects of stress and how to actually lower your stress levels as well. To start with, can I just get a show of hands? Who's an expat here? Yeah, okay. Duh. Okay. Who's just moved in the last 6 months? Okay, cool. Fresh. Nice. Okay so far, or? Yeah, all right. Okay, cool. Who's been here longer than a year? Okay, 2 years? Whoa, okay, 3 years? 4 years? 5? 6? Oh my gosh, 7, 8, 9, 10? Holy, okay, you guys are basically Dutch now. Okay, well, just a little bit about myself and then we'll get into the actual interesting part. My name's Tori, as I said. I'm originally from New Zealand, if you couldn't tell by the accent. I moved to the Netherlands in 2021. I started in Gouda, or Gouda, the cheese place. Then I went to Rotterdam for a couple of years, and I've been in Amsterdam for a few years now, working at Solar. Solar is our chiropractic practice located on the Overtoom, which is one of those really long streets in Amsterdam that stretches from the centre near Leidseplein all the way up to west. And we run the whole way along the Vondelpark, so it's a really nice location, especially for our clients. We encourage people to go for a walk after adjustments. So it's a really nice location and a really beautiful practice, if I say so myself. Not that I made it, but yeah. Right, let's talk about stress. So stress can be good or bad. Stress doesn't always mean a bad thing. So stress is actually how we build ourselves stronger. It's how we motivate ourselves. It's how we get further in our lives and stronger in our bodies physically. But stress, of course, can be bad as well. Certain types of stress are not good for our bodies, and too much stress in a repeated kind of cycle over a long period of time is also not great for our bodies. When we talk about stress, we can divide all stresses into 3 categories. We kind of call it the 3 T's of stress: thoughts, toxins, and traumas. Thought stresses are mental or emotional stresses. So this is how we think about ourselves, how we think about the world around us, the people, the environment, how other people affect us emotionally and mentally. And some of those are conscious thoughts and patterns, and some of them can be more subconscious thoughts and patterns. So they also have a massive effect on us. And being aware of those subconscious patterns is a really important part of what we do as chiropractors. Toxic stress is chemical stress in our body, anything that's unnatural. So our bodies have evolved over millions and millions and millions of years to recognize so many compounds and chemicals, natural chemicals found in nature. So not all chemicals are bad, but there are also certain chemicals, especially in the last 100 years, that have been man-made that our bodies don't know how to recognize, and that causes a stress in our body, either by it building up over time or imbalancing our own innate chemicals in our body. Anything that disrupts our own natural processes like that can cause stress in our body. So that's another form of stress. And then the last one, traumas. In this specific instance, we're talking about physical traumas. So the physical things that we do with our body, how we use our body, how we move our body all day, every day, or maybe how we don't move our body, because especially in our modern lifestyles, we certainly don't move as much as our bodies have evolved for. So when we talk about stress, we're not just talking about stress from the job or stress from our family. We're talking about all types of stress which involve all those. to really understand how stress affects our bodies, I think it's important to understand what the underlying process is happening behind that. For me, and I know lots and lots of people, when we hear the word stress, it can be quite an arbitrary term, and it's just a bit like, oh yeah, stress affects us, but whatever, I can push through it, it'll be fine. Personally, I was a skeptical person until I went through my studies and really started to understand this process. And I know lots of people feel like, oh, if it wasn't a car crash or if it wasn't a major traumatic event in my life, it's probably not going to affect my body too much. And the sore shoulders that I have or the headaches that I have is just a result of sleeping one night in a bad position or something like that. I hear that all the time. And it's important to understand really what's happening underneath all these layers. So to understand the stress response in our body, we're going to talk about our fight or flight state and our rest and digest state. Has anyone heard of the fight and flight state? Yeah? Okay, cool, nice. Okay, awesome. Anyone brave enough to give me a definition?
I could go ahead.
Yep, go for it.
So basically, in any situation that's unknown, your brain immediately thinks, should I fight it or should I flight as I move away from the situation?
Yeah.
That's the most basic.
Yeah, perfect. Nice. Or freeze. Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Freeze,
Yeah, 100% is the third one there. Exactly. So exactly what you said. The fight or flight state is there to protect us from this unknown threat, or maybe a known threat that our body knows. So we're going to choose, are we going to fight that maybe imaginary lion that's out there, or we're going to run away from that lion? So it's the fight or the flight state. We have our freeze state, which is when our body maybe doesn't know what to do. We've used up all our resources in our body, or we don't know how to make a decision because it's so traumatic, or it's traumatic over a longer period of time. Often in our modern lifestyles, we might call that a burnout. That's when our body no longer knows what to do, fight or flight, so we freeze, we burn out. The fourth one as well is fawn, and the word I think comes from the baby deer, but basically it's to make yourself look very presentable to the threat. Hopefully they don't view you as a threat and they walk away. So in modern lifestyles, again, that could be people pleasing, it could be dressing ourselves up to look pretty or not so scary. It can be trying to fit in with the norm as well, because fitting in with the norm is making you a non-threatening person. So fight, flight, freeze, fawn. The fight or flight state we call the sympathetic state, and the rest and digest state we call the parasympathetic state. So our sympathetic nervous system is a part of our nervous system, part of our automatic nervous system. So that means it's controlling all the processes that happen automatically in our body. And its job is there to protect us from this threat that we think is out there. The three most easy things to tell yourself if you're in the fight or flight state, so we can do this right now. One is our posture, because if you can imagine a lion is coming at you, your posture is going to go forward to protect yourself from that lion and also get you on your toes so you're ready to run away. The soft part of our body is, of course, on our belly, and that's where a lot of our vital organs are, so protecting that is really helpful. So if you know that your head maybe sits a bit further forward, your shoulders are forward, that's one of the signs. Another sign is your muscle tone, so are your muscles really, really tight? When our brain believes that there's a lion out there, then to fight that lion or to protect us, we're going to engage all our muscles, and it's not specific to only our fighting muscles. It engages all the muscles in your body. So a really common thing that I hear is, I've got jaw tension, but I don't know where it comes from. Again, your jaw muscles are super, super strong, and your brain is engaging all your muscles to protect you, so jaw tension or any type of tension in your body can be a part of your fight or flight response. The third thing is breath. So when we are in a state where we need to run away or fight quite quickly, our breath will shift into our chest. That kind of breathing is much more helpful if we need to exercise as well, than a nice, deep, relaxed belly breath. So that's another sign that you're in the fight or flight. If you tick all three of those boxes, then probably there's something going on through there. As expats, we have a lot of stresses that aren't, of course, lions, but we have a lot more stresses than what I can compare to my friends who still live back in New Zealand. Learning the language, a new culture, not having your support crew around you, moving houses multiple times, or even just trying to find a house, trying to find a job. All these kinds of stresses, some of them are the toxic, some of them are the trauma, some of them are the thought stresses, but they all engage this state of protection in us. So that's our fight or flight state being activated. The fourth symptom that we can kind of talk about is sleep. So sleep often changes when we've been in the fight or flight state for quite a long time. And that's because your brain genuinely believes there's something like a lion out there, and it wants to keep you up through the night. It wants to maybe wake you up a few times, maybe it's difficult to get to sleep, maybe your sleep is quite light. And all of that's really helpful, because imagine that there's a lion out there, you don't want to be going into deep sleep. So those are some good signs that you can use to check in yourself if you think you might be in the fight or flight state. The opposite, rest and digest, it says what it does what it says. The resting state, the digesting state, it's where all our longer term health functions happen. So digestion is a really important thing that we want to go well, but it's a lot of energy to digest your lunch. And if you need to run away from a lion, it's actually going to be more useful to use your energy to run from that lion than to digest your lunch. So that's why things like digestion, the reproductive system, the immune system, they start to have malfunction or dysfunction when we're in the fight or flight state for a long time, because it's not beneficial to use our energy to do those things when we're running from a lion. What our brain is used to is living in a very easy, natural, calm environment and switching into that fight or flight state when necessary and switching back out. So our vital function shouldn't really be inhibited by that too much. But because our modern lifestyles are so far from what we have evolved to be like, we're constantly in this fight or flight state. So that's when we start to see digestive changes and reproductive changes. Infertility is a really big one that we see when we've been in the fight or flight state for a long time, which is why we get lots of people pregnant at chiropractic places. Sleep as well, again, is going to be better in your parasympathetic system. Some things you can look out for yourself as well around the fight or flight. We talked about sleep, irritability and reactivity are classic symptoms that we're in the fight or flight. Again, going to help you protect yourself from that lion. Tight or painful body we talked about. Concentration and focus issues often come when we're in our fight or flight state, because our brain really wants to zero in on that one threat, and it doesn't want to use lots of energy focusing on everything that's around us. So that's something you can look at as well. Low energy, our muscles use so much energy if they're engaged all the time. When our posture shifts forward, our body genuinely feels heavier as well, because our center of gravity has changed. So all of these things use a lot more energy in the long term, so we can start to feel really tired after a long time being in the fight or flight, which eventually, of course, leads to the burnout part. And then negative or pessimistic thoughts are really helpful if you're in a slightly dangerous situation, because thinking the worst is going to help you survive, not thinking the best. On the other side, the rest and digest, good sleep, having a calm mind, physical flexibility and mobility. When our muscles are tight protecting us, we don't have as much flexibility. When our nerve system is relaxed and calm, we actually have more flexibility. You don't need to train that. It's something that comes with your nerve system, actually. Good decision making, because we have a lot more concentration and focus for all the other things that are going around us. Abundant energy, libido is better, because again, safe to bring a baby into a world where there's no lions, not safe to bring a baby into the world where there's no lions. Libido's useless in that case. A balanced appetite, not super hungry, hoping to feed our bodies with everything we can possibly find, because maybe food's not going to be around in another hour, but also not being super low in our appetite as well, which can indicate a fight or flight state. And then I put this lovely one here, attractive. We all know when we walk into a room and someone is just, they're gorgeous, they're magnetic. And that's because they're calm, they're confident, their posture's open. They're kind of letting people come to them. They're obviously not worried about anyone in the room. That's a really a nice benefit, I think, from being in the parasympathetic. So, the interesting part. 10 ways to reduce your fight and flight. Number 1, sleep. Sleep. Just go to sleep. It's helpful. When we sleep, that's when our body is physically restoring itself and mentally and emotionally recovering from the day. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a negative cycle, because if you're in the fight or flight state, you're not going to sleep very well, and then that increases the stress in your body. So it's a really difficult cycle. But there's certain things that we can do to really set ourselves up to have a good sleep. One is not having too much artificial light in our eyes after the sun goes down, because artificial light is interpreted by the brain as the same thing as daytime light, and our brain uses that light to say, oh, it's not bedtime anytime soon, so I'll keep all my cortisol a bit higher, and our melatonin won't kick in, and that's, as lots of us know, the sleep hormone. Also not eating too close to bedtime, so ideally at least 3 hours before bed, maybe even longer if you can. Reducing your caffeine. I think society talks a lot about sleep, so there's some good things that you can do there. Breath is another very powerful thing that you can use to induce a parasympathetic response. If you find you're breathing up here, or if you know that you're going into your fight or flight response, simply breathing through your belly can tell your brain, hey, you've got it wrong, mate. There's no lions out there. We can relax. So breath is actually super, super powerful. It's something that I teach every month in our monthly workshops that we do at Solar. So it's a really cool thing that you can do for yourself. Simply belly breathing, or there's lots of techniques out there, including more intense ones like Wim Hof, or more researched ones like the 4-7-8 method. But there's lots of really cool stuff that you can do to switch off your fight or flight response. Movement, super helpful. Our brain communicates with our body when we are moving. So the more connected our brain is to our body, the less likely it is to misinterpret a signal that says, hey, something's wrong here, and go into that fight or flight state. So getting enough movement is really helpful. The most helpful movement that you can do is walking. Sounds so boring, but it's genuinely the most helpful thing you can do. Walking not only gets you outside and interacting with other people, but it's a rhythmical, repetitive movement that your brain has evolved to do over millions of years, and it indicates that we're in a safe kind of environment. We're just walking through the plains of the Sahara, looking for some food, looking for some water. It's such a good way to support your body and your nerve system. So do more. Nutrition, I think that's a really common thing we've all talked about many, many times, I'm sure. Having a healthy diet is really important to support a good functioning nerve system. If we're not getting the food that we need, then our nerve system can view that as a threat. Getting enough calories is really important. There's this massive diet culture within our modern lifestyles that isn't very supportive of our bodies. Also getting natural foods, lots of fats, lots of proteins, really, really important to maintain a good nerve system. Fats especially. And then for women, actually having enough carbs around the second half of your menstrual cycle is super important to support that process, because it is actually a very calorie intensive process, and we demonize carbs, but they can be good for us in certain amounts at certain times. So eating well is important. Taking care of our emotional health will of course reduce that emotional stress load on our bodies. It can be anything from journaling to talking to a friend to talking to a therapist to literally just sitting on your couch and having some quiet time. I think all of us these days are super stimulated by our phones and by our work and our families and all this kind of stuff. We don't even take 5 minutes in the day to just calm down, take a moment, think about what's happened during the day. And that's also why you can get all those racing thoughts at nighttime, because you simply haven't had enough time to process what's actually happened during the day. So taking 5-10 minutes is better, just to sit and do nothing. Even if you're not consciously thinking about something that's happened during the day, just letting the thoughts come and then letting them go. Lots of different techniques out there that you can do. Getting outside is great. We obviously evolved to be outside, and now we spend so much of our days inside under artificial light. Being outside with fresh air is obviously good for us, but in this specific case, I'm talking about the sunlight specifically. Sunlight during the middle of the day is a blue wavelength, and that indicates to our brain through some receptors in our eyes that pick up blue lights that it's the middle of the day, and this helps to set our circadian rhythm. So when our brain sees blue light outside of the middle of the day, we think, oh, maybe it's the middle of the day, I'm not going to go to sleep yet. We kind of already talked about that. So blue light is not bad. Blue light is just bad at the wrong time of the day. There's all this blue light demonization as well. So take your glasses off when you're walking outside. Make sure the light's getting into your eyeballs directly and not through a bit of glass or a bit of plastic. And then also at the start and the end of the day, at sunrise and sunset, the light is a more red or an orangey kind of wavelength, and that also helps to set our circadian rhythm, because again, it tells our brain what time of day it is. Okay, it's time to start the day, or it's time to kind of slow the day. So getting outside is really, really beneficial. Reducing our sensory stimulus, kind of just quickly talked about that, but we are all so distracted by all sorts of sensory inputs to our bodies all day long. If we think about the 5 senses, our sight, hearing, smell, touch, taste. If we can reduce especially the sight and especially the hearing, that's going to help a lot. So next time you go for your walk or your run or your workout at the gym, think about just taking the headphones out, not listening to a podcast, not listening to music, and just getting your brain to kind of focus on the movement that you're doing and not overstimulating it. All this overstimulation that we get definitely contributes to our fight or flight state, because our brain is constantly thinking about all the threats around us all the time. Same with our phones. There's so many flashing images on our phones and on the TV these days. So maybe before bed reading a book or doing some journaling or something like that instead of stimulating our brain through those things. Chemical stimuluses as well. Chemical stimuluses, reducing them. Caffeine, nicotine, unnatural products in our food, all of those things can induce this fight or flight state. Caffeine and nicotine act the same way that Class A drugs act on our brain, like cocaine, and it really ramps up our stimulus in our brain, and it takes a long time to come out of our system. So even when we go to bed, if we've only had one coffee at 9 a.m., there is still a bit of caffeine in our system, and that's blocking one of our sleep hormones from coming up. So reducing your overall chemical stimuluses can be really helpful. Another thing that we sometimes don't think about that's really, really common in fragrances, so perfumes, cleaning products, candles, and also some plastics, there's these things called xenoestrogens, and they mimic our own estrogen in our body. And so that takes up the place of estrogens in our body, which means our own estrogen, both in men and women, is free flowing around our body. And that gives us so much estrogen, which is not good for women both pre and post menopause. And also really not good for guys, and it can end up giving you physical feminine traits in your body if we have those things. So perfumes, those types of things, reducing those things as well. Release your energy. Sounds so hippie, but get your energy out. Fight or flight state is there to protect us. And if you think about it in the wild, if there was a lion in front of you and the lion came at you, you're going to either fight that lion or run away from that lion. And that's a physical expression of that stress. So stress is always expressed physically in our bodies. And so often we hide our feelings and we just want to do normal, as the Dutch say, or just kind of blend in and don't make a big fuss. But actually releasing that energy can be so helpful. So maybe it's screaming into your pillow, maybe it's going for a run, going to the park, playing with your kids if you have them, playing with a dog, anything like that that just physically gets your energy out in a playful way is a really good way of managing your stress. And lastly, chiropractic. Couldn't be here without telling you about that. Chiropractic in so many ways increases or improves the connection between your brain and your body, which allows your brain to see that you are actually safe, your body is okay. And chiropractic adjustments improve the vagal tone or increase vagal tone in your body. And the vagus nerve is a really long nerve that runs all the way from your brain through your throat, through your abdomen, all the way into your pelvic floor. And that is a really key part of the parasympathetic nerve system. So that gets switched on when we adjust you. And most people feel that straight after the adjustments, this kind of relief of energy and like a physical release in their body. So it's a really powerful way of getting into the parasympathetic and staying there. We can train that over time, just like we can train anything in our bodies. Our brain is really smart, and our body always has everything in it that it needs to heal and needs to be good. And I want you guys to know that you don't need to be fixed. You're not broken. There's nothing from the outside that needs to come inside you to really help fix anything. It's just your body needs to express itself in a more realistic way and more, and we need to bridge that gap between our modern lifestyles and really what our bodies evolved for. So that's essentially what chiropractic does. I'm going to be downstairs after this in the health and leisure part, and we have a little booth down there. So I can talk to you more about this kind of stuff if you're really interested in how chiropractic might be able to help you with your stress responses. At Solar, we take a really goal-centered approach to your care. We try not to just focus on your symptoms and reducing those, but really digging to the bottom and understanding why is your body in this state in the first place. What's the reason? What's the underlying imbalances in your lifestyle or in your physical body that may have led you to come into this state in the first place? And for me, it's really important to not just help you feel a little bit better on the day of your adjustment, but to really get you improving your whole life and seeing what's even potentially out there for you once you feel a completely different way. If your brain had this more capacity to take in more information and not just be focusing on a single threat all the time, imagine how many different cool things you could be doing. We don't even know what it could be. So just ask yourself this question right now. What would you do differently if you had more calmness and energy? That's something we ask you in the first appointment at Solar.